Yeah. Wow. Creeping up close-ish to 200 episodes. Dan here on Yesshift with that guy.
Yeah, his son Steven. How's it going, everyone? We're celebrating 50 years of Relayer. Of course, the 50th anniversary is on November 28th, but we're kind of on a break next week, so I figured we'd put this out now and maybe we'll also repost it. But yeah, we got a lot of comments from people with their memories of Relayer. I don't know if we'll get to all of them since there are so many, but um, yeah, so we'll go ahead and try that. Did the intro music stop?
It did.
Oh, I was hoping it would go into the sound chaser bit, but
Oh
I
darn.
guess,
Okay, here we go.
yeah.
Let's give it a listen. Let's let it continue.
Okay, right. But, um, but yeah, so we're celebrating Relayer, and I'll also talk a little bit about the book that the Gottlieb brothers put out. Um, through Manhead merch on the Yesshift store, and yeah, there we go. Yeah. So I guess to start, should we start with like a brief overview of how Relayer, sort of that lineup, got together or something?
No.
Or okay.
Here's why. Here's why. I think, Steve, this might be either first or second place as far as the amount of comments that came in for an episode before we broadcasted. It's either first or second next to the Roger Dean birthday episode we did where we asked people, what's your favorite cover? Am I
Right.
right?
Yeah, I think so.
And coincidentally, I think Relayer won first place in that poll.
Yeah, it was like first or second. I can't quite remember, but yeah, it's really high up there. The album cover, which I mean, it's so iconic, and we even got to see it at the Roger Dean and Freya Dean exhibit a couple years ago, and we put together our own little documentary of seeing that.
And we'll
And we
show that
actually,
clip in just a bit.
yeah, we have a clip that we can show. Yeah, I don't know if we should show that now or later, or
Let's talk
I don't know.
about the lineup, then the cover, and then what's inside as far as the music.
Okay, yeah. So, as people know, this was an interesting time in Prague. You know, bands like King Crimson were putting out stuff. You know, Star Wars and Bible Black, Red. Um, there was also a little Canadian band called Rush, which put out their debut album earlier that year, 1974. Genesis put out The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway the same month that this came out. Uh, so yeah, quite a huge year. And Welcome Back, My Friends. You know, the ELP live album. You know,
An
huge stuff.
incredible year for music, for Prague
Yeah,
especially.
yeah. And there was also a band called Refugee, which also had keyboardist Patrick Moraz. And you know, after getting a decline from Keith Emerson on joining Yes, because of course he was with ELP, and of course Vangelis's audition, where they realized, you know, maybe it wouldn't work with him since he's, you know, such a force, you know, he's such a presence, and they'd kind of have to abide by him. It's seemingly so. They ended up with Patrick, you know, as the successor to the Keys after Rick had left following the Topographic Oceans tour, and that was quite a huge change. Even I think came up with Sound Chaser during the audition, as the story goes. But
That's
yeah,
crazy.
yeah, such a huge change right there.
Hey, I have this little thing. Let me play it for you. I mean, can you imagine? Music was just different then as far as what was acceptable. And I mean, if a band came out with Relayer right now as their first album, they'd never get signed. Not in the US
Mm,
anyway. I mean,
right.
I don't think.
Yeah, I mean, music today, like the industry of it, is weird because there are albums of this caliber that people put together, but they're not like in the eyes of like the mainstream
Right.
today, really. Yeah.
Cool.
Um,
So, yeah, interesting lineup. I don't know if an album with only one album for one lineup has ever been so loved by the fandom of a band that lasted so long. Like, it's not like there were three albums. This was a one-off lineup and people think it's their favorite. It's one out of so many, and out of over 50 years of music, yet that one lineup, this one album, is the favorite of so many. And that's so interesting. That's an interesting kind of statistic, I think.
yeah, and what's funny is going through some of the comments that came in within the past day, something I realized was that back then there were people here and there who were Yes fans who weren't really sure what to make of Relayer. You know, with the hindsight, we're so used to thinking of it as this well loved thing, and it's really high up there in people's rankings. But yeah, I think for some people, it really took some getting used to, which, you know, upon seeing those comments and thinking over the music, it's like, yeah, stuff like Gates of Delirium is kind of scary. Some people even like compare it to King Crimson, you know, that some of that material can be kind of scary or whatever. But
Yeah,
yeah,
I
like
think
some
that two of the
challenging stuff.
factors that play into that, Steve, I think that two of the factors are, like you mentioned, there's that whole scary war passage in Gates. There's that. But also, I think the fusion esque elements that
Mm.
Patrick brought along, that Chris and Alan played into, I think that took people by surprise. It was almost like are they changing genres? And what's with this battle thing and the screams and the explosions? And it's just like what could possibly be done after Close to the Edge, Tales from Topographic Oceans? Oh, this.
Yeah.
It's
And I mean,
crazy.
in a way, it kind of feels like a continuation from the battling and ritual, you
Oh,
know?
that's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, but it must have been like really different, like those to people's ears and whatnot. So was this one of the first few Yes albums that you got into back in the day?
Yeah. So my little story with it is that, I got into Yes not long after Fragile came out. And then it was Close to the Edge and Yes songs. So it was kind of like in order, but it's the first interview I heard. I remember, and I have it on reel to reel tape, quarter-inch tape somewhere. Jim Ladd, the late great Jim Ladd, interviewed all five of them at a restaurant, and it might have been before the album came out because I remember being caught by surprise. Even though I was, how old was I when this came out? I was 11? No,
Yeah, 11.
11. I remember going, wait, who's this Pat guy? And
Yeah.
why don't I hear Rick? So it might have even been before or near the release, and I hadn't gotten the album yet, but I have my original vinyl album still. And man, at 11, having that cranked up with headphones on, and then that battle scene comes, that scared the crap out of me.
Yeah.
And then you compare that to Soon and To Be Over, and it's like they went as far opposite of ends of the spectrum musically on this one album that they possibly could have, I think. And that's one of the things that makes it great.
Yeah, I remember when I was very little, you know, we
Yeah, I was trying
uh
to remember when you were introduced to it.
yeah, well, I'd heard you know, the QPR stuff. You know, there's that concert and also the Yes Years documentary has bits of that. So, I'd heard Relayer through that, but then a, a couple years passed where I didn't watch any of that, and then for my ninth birthday, so 2003, you mailed me the remastered versions of Relayer and Going for the One, and so
And you're
this
how
was the
old?
nine.
Okay. So I
Yeah.
figured, just so you know, folks, if I may chime in real quick, Steve.
Okay. Yeah. I'll remember.
Yeah, okay, good. Some dads turn their sons on to cigarettes or beer or whatever.
Wait.
And I thought,
What?
no, I know how to really screw with him. I'm going to send this
Right.
because he was a 90125 freak by then.
Yeah. Basically. Um, and funny enough, in the comments, Philip Kilroy says, Yes always changes styles. No two Yes albums are alike except for 90125 and Big Generator.
And I think even those have
Interesting.
a big difference if you really pick it apart. Maybe we'll do that sometime
Yeah.
on the.
Yeah. Even in the production quality, like we've talked
Oh,
about
yeah.
before. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, this when you sent me this CD, I it was maybe a few months after I got the compilation highlights the very best of Yes, and so I heard Soon on that, and I it also came with this fold out thing that said like who played on which track, and I think that's when I got the Patrick Moraz name committed to memory. Like, yeah, he was mentioned in Yes Years and whatnot, but I was like very little when watching that, so it didn't stick as much. But yeah, and then uh, going through the entire thing, Gates of Delirium, Sound Chaser, To Be Over, and the bonus tracks, the single edits of Soon, Sound Chaser, and the studio run through of Gates. It was quite an experience, and I was like, "What's a studio run through?" Is probably what I was thinking, and
Yeah.
going through Gates of Delirium and seeing that it concludes with Soon, I was like, "Oh, so Soon is part of this song, okay?" Because it'd been a while since the QPR
So,
stuff.
so let me ask you, when you listened through that whole journey of Gates of Delirium, what was your first reaction when you heard Soon all of a sudden sort of blossom at the end when the dust settles and everything? Were you like, oh, or what was it?
Yeah, I mean, I just said it. I was like, "Oh, yeah, Soon is part of this." I didn't know that, or I'd forgotten because
Yeah, but I didn't really
yeah.
get how it hit you. That's what I mean. Was it a
Okay.
huge
Yeah,
surprise or
cuz a lot of Gates is very heavy and sort
ag-
of
aggressive?
aggressive and noisy, discordant, but in a really cool way. And this was probably my first time reading the lyrics along to the songs, and we got to the part where it said, "Burn their children's laughter onto hell." I thought to myself, "Oh my gosh, they said a bad word. Should I be listening to this?" But yeah, it was really, um, it really left an impression seeing the twists and turns that this took and how long the instrumental section would be, and um, calming down and then going into Soon. Like I probably didn't know what to expect when it was calming down, and then getting to Soon was like, okay, I'm back in the familiar, like what I remember, and then hearing the studio run through was when I was realizing, okay, this is an early version. Okay, and um, interestingly, that studio run through they would do Soon and then do a reprise of the do 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 do. So the ending was kind of different, and I think it was smart of them to cut that bit out and just end with Soon. It leaves a bit more mystery and
And
beauty, like
also,
ending like that.
it's a great end to it all. After everything that happened, you get this beautiful, the sun's coming back up, and I think it's perfect for everything the song goes through. For it to end up there, I think it couldn't have been a better ending.
Right. And I do have the CD here in its little sleeve. I even at the concert we went to 6 years ago on the 50th anniversary tour, got it signed by Steve Allen and even Tony K because he was just signing anything that came
I know.
to the
I
table.
wished I slipped a check in front of him.
No, yeah, and I remember afterward he told me, you know what, that's he has a right to because he was on that original album, and so anything with the Yes name is like, okay,
That's
yeah,
right.
I mean it's really cool either way.
He's a founder of the brand.
Yeah, and this came with the little booklet with an essay by the Gottlieb brothers, who also put together this book that I ordered from the Yes World store.
Right. I
And
gotta
yeah,
get that. That's
um,
cool.
yeah, and sorry, there's like some noise going on around here,
That's okay.
but I took the time to read this book, and for context, it's something that they put together for what was originally intended to be the the album series Relayer tour. It was gonna happen in 2020, and then COVID happened, and then there were delays for other reasons. Then they pivoted to Close to the Edge 50th anniversary tour. We've been through all that. We've talked about that, but yeah, this is what they put together for that tour that would have happened. So it's I think last I checked, it's $100 on the official store. Man had merch. Um, they're in charge of pricing and whatnot, but I do appreciate that the Gottlieb brothers, in comments sections of posts and stuff, they're trying to
Yeah.
make sure that people know what they're getting. That this isn't interviews with Patrick Moraz and Jon Anderson. It is the Yes Band, like 2019, 2020, talking about Relayer and trying to refresh ourselves on the material. So there's a bittersweetness to it, because
Yeah.
you see how big fans they are of the album and how they're looking forward to playing it. But we all know what happened, and but I do appreciate that the Gottlieb brothers' efforts um, for this book, like, it wasn't for naught. That's still put out for collectors, people who are interested, and we got a few more quotes from Alan in this, which it
That's
didn't
cool.
even occur to me that, oh, we could get a bit more Alan material. And there's a bit where he talks about how he and John would always go to the junkyards and try out percussion related things there, like to
Yeah.
experiment with. um
Cool. I'm excited to get there. Get that.
y-
I mean, do you have more to show of that, or do you want to pivot back to the other two tracks real quick? And we'll get to comments, folks. And we have 8 pages of comments that people sent before the broadcast. Some are one-liners, some are 2 or 3 paragraphs. We'll get to all that in a minute.
Right. Yeah, I'll show a little bit of it. There's so there's definitely a couple bits I want to show. I won't spoil the whole thing, but yeah, in terms of the text, it's maybe amounts to like 10 full pages of text, and the rest is a lot of cool photos. Some
Cool.
of the photos are in their Close to the Edge 50th anniversary tour book, but there are also some others I hadn't seen.
Great.
I'm not sure that I've seen. Uh, well, I
Oh,
think I've seen this one, Billy and Alan
I
hanging
haven't
out.
seen that.
And there's another one of Billy and Steve. Yeah, it looks like they're laughing about something
Oh,
over there.
nice.
Yeah. And there's also some memorabilia from like the Relayer era, like different vinyl pressings, and
Wow.
even stuff concerning like the solo albums of that time. It goes a little bit into um what was like working on the solo albums. There's recreations of uh programs, like the Relayer Tour program or the QPR program. Oh, here are some promotional posters for the solo albums. So
Oh, wow.
yeah, it
Yeah,
definitely
that's
looks
cool. I'm
better in
gonna get
person.
this. Or can you
Yeah.
just scan that and print it for me?
Right.
I'm
So
kidding.
it's very picture heavy for the most part. So don't feel too daunted by the text. And the text is worth reading. Of course, there's a Crab Nebula that's
Oh,
very
yeah.
indicative of the time.
Yeah.
So um, yeah, and there are probably some other things I thought about that stood out as I was reading it, and I don't know if they'll come to me in the conversation. But yeah, it's I'm glad I have it. I can understand if the price can be a thing for some people, so we'll just leave it all to y'all to decide if you
Yeah, just
want
buy
it or
less beer
not.
and pizza. This is a keeper, this thing. I'm gonna get it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna order it today.
Okay.
It's on Amazon as well?
It's on the Yes World store.
Okay.
Yeah, right. So
I'm going to open that tab right now. So let's talk about the other two tracks, and then we're going to jump to comments because we have so many folks, and Steve and I will probably comment on some of the comments as well,
yeah,
like we do.
yeah. Oh,
So
we also have
sound.
the video of the artwork. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So Sound Chaser, what are your thoughts on that? Or what were they when you first heard it as a kid at 9?
Yeah, it sounded a little familiar because, of course, the QPR thing. But um, yeah, I thought it was really cool and funky, and I was kind of taken off guard by the cha 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 cha, and I was even more taken off guard by the single edit, which was just some of the instrumental bits and the cha 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 chas is really unusual to hear. But yeah, it's very. It sounds like it would be tough for just anyone to play. Am
Oh
I
yeah.
correct on that? Yeah.
Great music. It's fun to play too. I love playing that stuff. And I will be
Yeah.
playing my tribute to this album. I'm going to play it in its entirety. I don't have a date, but it'll be before the end of the year because that's partly how we're winding down the year on Drum Talk TV and Yesshift is we're paying homage to some of my albums, my favorite albums that are in my wheelhouse that are 50 years old this year. And this is definitely one of them. So I'm going to play the whole thing.
Yeah. And something that kind of came to mind is that it follows sort of a similar thing as Gates of Delirium, where it's like sort of chaotic, aggressive, all over the place, and then winds down with a quieter section.
Yeah.
But then it has like the reprise on this one, though. So it's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. And to be over, I remember the big surprise. I think it was on the Full Circle tour where Steve Howe played an acoustic version of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was really cool.
Yeah, that's one that I'm surprised they haven't tried playing in its entirety, like even on its own. But something I just remembered is in this book, Jay Shellen says that "To Be Over" is deceptively simple. Like there's some emotional
Yeah.
things to get right. So yeah, I don't know. Like I got to see them play Gates on the Royal Affair tour, but I love to see them play the other songs as well, and for other people to get to hear them too. So
Yeah,
yeah, but
absolutely. So let's talk about the album cover again. And I'll show a clip. So Steve mentioned, in case you missed it, a couple of years ago, we went to San Francisco to an exhibit by Roger Dean and Freya Dean, his daughter, and just incredible, amazing original pieces there. There were a lot of Yes album art there. And we're going to show you a video from our documentary real quickly of it's a short segment that shows Relayer. And we were both shocked how small it was because there's some stuff that was like taller than Steve and he's like 6 feet. And then this thing was like, I don't know, maybe this big. It wasn't that big.
yeah,
But
something like that. Yeah.
yeah, check this out, folks. So here's a little sketch of someone on a horse that's just a small swatch of something. Notice the scales on the horse that I've never noticed before that are snake-like. It'd be great if they put a snake in this painting too. That would kind of make sense, but maybe Roger just wasn't thinking ahead. But it's very Tolkien-like, and I seem to remember he did something else that was kind of Tolkien related. I don't remember. Whoa, here we go. There we go. Okay, just messing with you folks. And there it is before us in all its majesty, the original Relayer, the Gates of Delirium scene from 1973, watercolor ink, acrylic on paper, on board, which is just incredible to see it in person. Look at the colors. It's more colorful than we think of the album being when you look at the snake and the granite.
Yeah, like the green stands out a bit more
yeah.
up close.
And again, up close, look at the detail and the time and patience that must have taken. Look at that and how symmetrical the underbelly of the snake is, all done by hand. Doesn't look like drafting tools were used there. I could be wrong, but and if you can't tell, then that's the thing. It doesn't matter. And then the key-like crags into the undersides of each of those different spires, if you will. It's just amazing to see in person. This is one of the most two iconic things that were there. Wow. I haven't watched that in so long. I forgot how awesome that looks so close up.
Yeah.
I mean, literally, the camera was that close to the surface of the cover sometimes, folks. Just incredible work of art. Again, considering how small it is, too. It's like he must have used a magnifying, light or a jeweler's. I forgot what that's called. What does your brother use? It's called a,
Um,
the eye thing. It's a one
yeah,
syllable word.
I don't remember what it's called,
No, that's not it.
but
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 yeah,
uh, yeah,
incredible.
yeah, for sure. But speaking of Roger, something I keep forgetting to mention on the show proper is so as we're recording, it's November 23rd, which is actually Doctor Who Day. And a few months ago I listened to a Doctor Who audiobook or audio drama. It's called Short Trips Malevolent, and it features one of the Doctor's companions, Mel. And there's a moment where it describes the setting, and she says it was like walking through a building site in a world conceived by Salvador Dali and Roger Dean. So I thought
Whoa,
that was,
seriously?
yeah, I think this audio is like a few years old or something, but yeah, I thought that was a really interesting thing. I had to like
Yeah.
rewind when I was like listening to it.
I wonder if Roger knows.
Yeah.
Those
I,
are two really interesting names to put together, representing two completely different worlds of art. Salvador Dali and Roger Dean.
yeah, and
Wow.
both of those names conjure specific styles, and it really says
Exactly.
something that when you hear Roger Dean's name, you think of a certain style. And
Yeah.
funnily enough, Relayer feels different from some of his other more, planned covered, like I think more of like the
The
stuff that
foliage.
includes more, yeah, of that. But it just fits. It fits the tone of this album. and
Totally.
and over where I am right now, it's kind of cloudy, a gray sky, so it's kind of fitting that we're doing
And
this. But
that's the
yeah,
thing that you pointed out in that clip is that the album actually, like to just look at it, looks very monochromatic. But if you look closely at the original, all those other colors that Steve mentioned in the snake and the granite and everything come through.
yeah,
It's just such a great cover.
yeah, for sure.
Cool. So should we get to comments and start that journey? There's a lot.
Yeah.
All right, I'll kick it off. Well, we'll read these and we'll get to the live comments also. So
Okay.
John Muir says, let me move it over so I'm not looking away from the
Or
camera.
I think it's James Muir.
Oh, James, I'm sorry. James Muir. He changed his name recently. James says, happy 50th birthday to Relayer. Up until recently, I had always found the album extremely difficult to listen to, which I attribute mostly to the startlingly different keyboard sounds of Patrick Moraz in wake of Wakeman's boredom-fueled departure. As a result of Moraz's inclusion here, the album struggles to sound like any Yes record previously released, yet naturally follows where Close to the Edge and Tales from Topographic Oceans left off. I agree. He continues to say, the adventurous spirit of the band is not lost here, with the lyrics and instrumentation blending the envelope of Yes's identity with apparent ease. As compared to the two preceding efforts, I still find it lacking that deeply spiritual, almost transcendent quality that Yes imbued into those works, although I think this was an intentional move. A relayer is a person who comes back from a spiritual experience and attempts to carry information back to the everyday world, the struggle of which is perfectly captured through the ebb and flow of the Allah Close to the Edge 3 song track list. In conclusion, I believe the album will continue to challenge my perceptions of the band at this time and of progressive music as a whole. This is probably, yes, at their most esoterically obscure, but also arguably their most focused. That's really such a great take, James.
Yeah, I really love how, we have the album cemented in our minds, but we get to see other perspectives that sort of make us rethink,
Totally.
what some of this means. And yeah.
Yep.
Uh, so this next one from Barry Bartle. Absolutely nothing to dislike about this brilliantly crafted album. It's got everything. The Gates of Delirium track is like a meeting of Yes and Stravinsky. It's earth shattering, ending with a beautiful Soon section. Side 2 gave us two wonderful songs, Sound Chaser and To Be Over, both incredible songs. Relayer was my first Yes concert. Beautiful memories of those crazy times. Yes must tour this amazing album again. Yeah, I do kind of hold on to that hope as well, but we'll see.
Yeah.
And then Robert Watt says, needed a lot of perseverance to appreciate this masterpiece. Took me about 20 spins. Okay. Interesting. So that's another one where it took some time to get into the album.
Yeah. It's different for everybody. Brian Breen. Hey, Brian. Brian says, great record. Sometimes a difficult listen as the dissonances are many, but these songs represent the return to the world after the mystical experience of communing with God, energy, love of the universe, which is Tales. And the world is filled with strife. In this case, specifically, the Napoleonic Wars. The blessed peace of Soon and To Be Over gives us glimpses of the previous transcendental oneness of spirit. Close to the Edge, Tales, and Relayer are a great prog trilogy, analogous to Joseph Campbell's Hero's Journey. Thank you to Yes for this musical spiritual gift. Another great take.
Yeah, I kind of look at those as a trilogy as well, like an epic Yes trilogy.
Absolutely.
Uh, then we
Absolutely.
then we get to Nick Zales, who says Yes's second best album. They took everything to another level. Three amazing songs. And
Why'd you leave that last part out? He says, second only to Open Your Eyes.
then
Just kidding.
right. And then Jose Antonio Covarrubias Sanchez basically had to translate this. Definitely their talent spreads here. It's very good quality. They never imagined that Patrick Moraz would be so extremely talented. And then, oh, sorry, were you about to say something? Or
Well, I was, but it's okay.
oh, okay. Patrick O'Gallagher says, brilliant, one of their best. Forget the Moraz versus Wakeman bullshit. This is a fine, original, extremely worthwhile album. Gates is wonderful. They ventured out and they won. Great album by a band that was willing to try anything and made a brilliant album. Yeah, I don't really see Moraz versus Wakeman debates these days. Was that a thing back in the day, maybe?
It probably was more so back then. You know, you more so see Emerson versus Wakeman, and they were friends. I mean, it's silly.
Right. Yeah.
Um, Joe Cortaron says Gates of Delirium and Soon. Soon is one of my top 3 all-time Yes songs. It brings up so much emotion in me whenever I hear it. It makes me tear up. Oh, that's neat. And Dominic DeGangi says, amazing, especially Howe. Howe had a change up on his guitar playing as far as the instrument he used, mainly a Telecaster rather than more often the ES-175 or ES-335. He had a ton of Telecaster on that, and he played that live as well, which we can see at the QPR shows. Next is Lyndon Pierce Parrish. I got to take a deep breath for this one. Okay. Relayer is peak Yes in many ways. It is also Yes at their most extreme in terms of virtuosity. The Gates of Delirium really captures Jon, the Son is God spirituality, and has the most beautiful and poignant ending of any Yes song, made even more effective after the chaos that ensues in the battle section. Kind of like what we were talking about. That's cool, Lyndon, which conversely features the most dissonant piece in Yes's canon, especially the harmonized tritone part just before the victory theme. These are great takes. Yeah. Sound Chaser is Yes at its most eclectic and unpredictable, their most virtuosic moment. An incredible ride of pure adrenaline featuring a speed freak jazz rock vibe, a solo electric flamenco meets hammer horror section, an incredible tempo change section followed by a Balinese monkey chant. Sorry. And a funk part that grooves so hard you can't help but smile at the sheer outlandishness of it all. Bum, 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 bum. I totally agree. It all ends in the warm glow of To Be Over, featuring, for me, Steve's greatest solo and a wonderful sun-kissed finale of the Yes Choir singing You to the Shores of the Afterlife. Unbeatable, unpredictable music from a wonderful bygone era. Magic. Wow, that was great. And I agree.
Yeah.
I
And I
that
think it says unrepeatable. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Unrepeatable music from a wonderful world bygone era. Magic. I agree that guitar solo at the end of in To Be Over period is his best slide solo out of anything, and there's many. We did a whole
Yeah.
episode once just on Steve's slide solo songs that featured that, but that
Yeah. It
is
sounds so
magical.
heavenly, and you know the Lord of the Rings comparison comes up a lot. It's even someone even mentions it in this book, but with Gates of Delirium kind of bringing to mind battles, but To Be Over, to me, because of the sailing, it brings to mind that the ending of Lord of the Rings, sailing out to the gray havens, and it's like closing the book on the story.
Right, but even before you go on to the next comment real quickly, Steve,
Yeah.
the unlikeliness of those two stringed instruments paired together and working so well. You've got the slide steel doing the lead, and then you've got the electric sitar in the background. Down, 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 and with the it's just, who would think of that and make it work like that? It's incredible. It really is.
Yeah, for sure. And so next up we have Martin Blahnik, who says sections of songs from this classic dance about had and moments of spontaneity here and there over the years. Yeah, so it really sticks with people.
Yeah.
David Allen Stafford says, my two best friends kidnapped me in 1975 and took me to my first rock concert at Roberts Municipal Stadium in Evansville, Indiana. The headliner was Yes. It was the Relayer Tour. It was the festival seating, meaning first come, first served. We were first and stood at the edge of the stage. The lights dimmed, the stage became engulfed with fog. Stravinsky's The Firebird roared. The air was filled with the smell of pot, and the energy of the crowd was palpable and began to crescendo with the climactic intro of the band. They opened with Sound Chaser. I've never recovered.
I wonder if that means you're a fan or not, though. Did it wreck you or set you straight? That's such a cool experience outlined
And
there.
Alistair Strang says, I remember the first time I heard it, I wasn't that taken with it. Then heard the Yes Show's version of Gates and loved it. Revisiting it, I became hooked, and it's now one of my all-time favorites.
Nice. Robert Grimm says Gates has some of the best Steve Howe ever. I agree. David Thompson says, great album. Enough said. Bruce Irwin. Oh, that's for you, Steve.
Yeah, he says one of the top 5 of Yes's best albums. The Relayer concerts were a spectacular event. The stages were incredible. And then John Bataille says, I love that album. Like every years have took a few lessons to get used to, or a few listens. Sorry. The Gates of Delirium is great, and I love Sound Chaser. Chris's bass is always amazing. To Be Over is a nice way to wrap this one up. Yeah, very cool bass moments from Chris on this.
Yeah, the playing and the tone and just everything. Him and Alan, just tremendous rhythm section together on this album. David Seligman says, saw Yes in Memphis Coliseum 1975. Best concert I ever saw. Gates's best song I ever saw live or heard on recording. Yes shows God is perfection.
Well, that's an abbreviation for Gates of Delirium.
Oh,
Yeah.
ironic.
No,
Um,
yeah. I remember when someone brought that up to Jon Anderson and his mind was blown about it. It was funny.
hey, I wouldn't be surprised, by the way, if we see this album performed live by John and the Band Geeks before Yes. You never know.
Well, they did play Gates, I think last year maybe, but they haven't played Sound Chaser or To Be Over, so I
Ooh.
guess we'll see.
Yeah, I'd love to see that. Glenn Dooley says a powerhouse of an album that sounds fresh as the day it was released. I agree. So far ahead of his time.
Yeah, and Phil Voinovich says Relayer is just sides 5 and 6 of Tales Armageddon.
Wow, that's
Interesting.
interesting.
And then Lon Gonzalez says, as a longtime Yes fan, Relayer was a revelation. The level of musical progression was pretty astonishing. I've listened to it over the years and still amazed at this incredible piece of work. Far beyond what was out there at the time, and still miles ahead of much of today's music. Happy 50th Relayer.
Nice.
And then Richard Fraser says, the one that hooked me as a lifelong fan. Nice. Yeah. So this was could have been an entry point for some people.
For a lot of people, I'm kind of surprised. That's cool. Robert Nasir says Relayer was close to the edge, turned up to 11,
Yeah.
only slightly more accessible than Tales from Topographic Oceans. This too demands a lot from the listener and rewards the effort magnificently. The band still does a fantastic job on Gates of Delirium live, but pulling off Sound Chaser and To Be Over has apparently proven too much. Small wonder. This is peak, yes, a time when the band and the individual members were superstars, winning awards and polls left and right through sheer talent, ability, virtuosity. A top favorite Yes album, more eclectic and frenetic than Close to the Edge, but that's part of why Relayer is the masterpiece that it is. Good take, Robert.
Yeah, for sure. Mark Gunhus says, my fave Yes album. Um,
Yeah.
Okay. This next one is you, Dad.
Yeah, JF Pelletier says love this album exclamation point, and Simon Dickinson says best Yes album after Close to the Edge.
Interesting. Yeah. Um, before we proceed, I just want to ask you, Dad, like, I don't know if you have a ranking, but where does Relayer rank for you amongst like your top Yes albums?
I don't really like it. No, I'm kidding. I was thinking about this earlier today because I knew you'd probably ask that, and of course I want to know for you. But you know what? Those three albums are my top, and it really comes down to mood. It comes down to my sensibilities and my mood at the time. Like it's kind of like Enja and my wife and I, folks. Enja and myself often after quite a busy day, I'm having to put on the professional face and everything. We got to watch some kick-assery movies at night to blow off the steam. This album's kind of like that. You know, it just kind of, you just blow out the pipes in so many ways. There's so much aggression, yet not just.
It's got the angst, but it also has the emotional release and soon. And
exactly. It's got the angst. It gets pensive. It's got otherworldly stuff, and it's got the beauty of Soon and the beauty of To Be Over. But then you've got those moments also in Close to the Edge and Tales, all to different degrees and all with different signatures, being that each of those albums are a different lineup. But you still, there's that common thread. So for me, it comes down to mood, and it ranks as one of my top three number ones, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
How about you?
Yeah, for me, I think for several years, I probably had Relayer as my number one, and then it became Tales. And then on this re-listen, I thought to myself, you know what? I wouldn't be surprised if this got to number one for me again. So it could depend on my mood, and Close to the Edge is third for me. I feel like Relayer is sequence, you know, the track list makes a bit more sense to me. Like, sure, it does begin with the epic, but the tracks after don't feel like you're sort of like going down the stairs, whereas Close to the Edge, as great as all the songs are, like I love all those songs, it does kind of feel like you're start with the epic and go downstairs through Andy and Dine, ending with
I
the beer and Katru.
totally agree. I think Close to the Edge should have been track listed the other way around if you go by sides. It should have been Siberian Katru and You and I and Close to the Edge. With Relayer, I agree 100% because if it went from Sound Chaser to To Be Over and then Gates at Delirium, I think I may have had an aneurysm. I mean, that would have just been too much. How can you take someone
Right.
to Be Over and the way that ends into something as volatile as Gates of Delirium? It just doesn't make sense.
Right.
It'd be
Um,
like going from the balcony to Heart of the Sunrise. It just
yeah. From the balcony to our the sunrise. Um, so getting back to the comments, Tim Scowcraft says saw and heard it all played at Manchester 1975. Been waiting to hear it all again ever since the last two tours in the UK were sold as Relayer, but we got 50 years of Close to the Edge and classic Tales with no Relayer at all. So yeah,
right.
I sympathize with that. People really want to hear this again. So,
It's a
but
band of scoundrels. What do you expect? Just
right.
kidding.
Uh, Joe Fiscalaire says, I've seen Yes over 80 times since the 77 going for the one tour.
Wow.
I've never seen them play two of my favorite songs of theirs, To Be Over and Sound Chaser. You would have thought at some point over the last 47 some odd years that they would have played their best songs in concert. Yeah, it really has been a while. Like that tour, like 75, I think, may have been the last time maybe 76.
You know what?
Um,
That really puts it into perspective right there. How is it they have not played those two songs in 47 years?
yeah, like
That blows
even
my
on their
mind.
own. Yeah.
Yeah, that just blows my mind. Wow. Thanks for pointing that out, Joe. I think it's
I think
Elia.
it's, yeah, Ela, I think it
Ela
is.
Grace Sharik says, very hard to believe it's been 50 years. I agree. I'm still getting over the craziness that Steven turned 30 this month, and he's our youngest.
Yeah.
Dennis Riney says, Gates of Delirium's musical interpretation of war and its aftermath is as good as anything Wagner ever did on the topic. Wow, that's high praise.
Yeah, Michael Gill says, changed my life. First rock concert, first exposure to the most amazing band ever. Steve Holmes said, when I first heard Gates of Delirium, it blew my mind and still does. To me, it's my favorite Yes album.
And I probably should have pronounced it Wagner.
Oh, yeah, that
Yeah,
makes sense.
yeah, Michael Joshua says, Relayer to me as an album and era was the pinnacle of the 1970s era. It was when Yes finally became a stadium act and they got the Dean visuals to work right, as the Tales tour was only the warm up for what was about to come. The fall of 1974 US leg of the Relayer tour blew minds and was Yes at their most unapologetic. I love that. The fact that they chose Sound Chaser as the opening number before Relayer was released in December really shows their attitude at this point. The Tales tour was plagued with bad reviews, impatient audiences. Many walked out, and the departure of Rick. The departure of Rick. We really did see a different Yes emerge in the fall of 1974. It was the most take no prisoners they ever got. They grabbed their audience by the collars and made them listen. Then, after this completely insane song, the intro to Close to the Edge began. My father and uncles who saw them December 6, 1974, all told me after the shock of Sound Chaser and the intro of Close to the Edge, the crowd went insane. That's another great perspective, the picture painted there. And yeah, unapologetic. And to just say, they kind of even said F you to themselves to say, screw it, let's just open with Sound Chaser. Like,
Yeah.
what a warm-up song for a show. That's crazy.
Yeah. And is it all right if I read some of the live comments
Yeah.
and then we can decide if there are any others on the doc we can get through?
Okay, absolutely. For the sake of time, because we've only got like 10 minutes left.
Yeah, or maybe we might go a little over,
Okay.
but yeah, I have something that's happening in a little while. But Charles Nolan said yes, Relayer released in the U.S. on December 5th, 1974. It was my 19th birthday. Relayer has been my number one record in my entire record collection, along with King Crimson Red.
Wow.
Nice. Let's see. Paolo Pigney says, definitely unique. The Gates of Delirium is the Lord of the Rings in music. I know John said he was inspired by War and Peace, but the cover by Roger Dean is Tolkien inspired. Yeah, for sure. Let's see. Star Clear Jeffrey Seelman says, bought the album the day it came out. Perfect for high quality headphones. A work of genius. Wow. So you were there when it came out. Paul Arzig, 74 to 76 are some of the best tours I ever saw. Let's see. Louise Rose said the album was at least a decade ahead of its time and a huge achievement both musically and as a recording.
Truth.
Yeah. Let's see. Oh, I see Robert Nasir chimed in again saying his first Yes concert was Tormato. But if he could have been at any pre-Tormato concert, the Relayer tour, which also included Ritual, would have been a hit. A magnificent album, and only wish that the 2022-23 Relayer tour had actually happened. And Dave
Tormato
Watkins.
was my first also.
Yeah, Dave Watkinson says Roger Dean is having an exhibition in the UK late next week, also live painting on stage next Friday. I'll be there at Trading Boundaries in Sussex. Relayer feels like Yes shook it up from Tales, still had a point to prove from some of the criticism of Tales. A creative high period, epics, stage shows, Roger Dean, and a want to prove that Yes could do anything. Yeah, for sure.
Thanks, Dave.
Let's see. Les Blatniak says, this was my first of 36 blessings of Squire and White. July 19th, 1975. The first three songs are Sound Chaser, Close to the Edge, and Gates of Delirium. Wow, that's crazy. Last time I saw them was 2014. Also something that, a little bit of trivia. So November 28th, when this came out in the UK that year, also would have been US Thanksgiving then, and it's US Thanksgiving next week. Yeah.
That is bizarre. 50 years around. That's why we're doing this today, folks, and not on the 28th, because that's our national holiday.
Right. So do you have any other comments on the doc that you feel like we have time for? I know there's a lot, and like we could be here all day talking.
Yeah, we're on page 6 of 9. Let me just scan through real quick. Okay, so I want to read this one from Margie Surface. I hope I'm pronouncing your name right, Margie Surface. When I play this album, first thing, I have to play it in its entirety, right through to the climax and the aftertones. Secondly, it takes me on a journey, not just spiritually and mentally, but physically as well. This is my second favorite Yes album. Oh, also second to Open Your Eyes. Interesting. Just kidding. I made that last part up. Then we've got, give me a sec here.
Yeah, I guess what this really shows is there's a lot of praise for this album.
Yeah, there's a lot of some of the same stuff being said, but in their own words. Here's one from Mark Michalko. My problem is that I witnessed Relayer tour on 11/20/74. I don't know if that's, oh, never mind. After seeing my first and best Yes concert on 2/16/74 evening show for Tales and Close to the Edge. Should have waited to maybe 76. Other issue, hearing Sound Chaser open my show was a bit of a shock. Better to have Siberian open and Sound Chaser second song. Siberian was at an added encore at my second Yes concert at Madison Square Gardens. Yes would make that change in 76. Well, it's too late now. Total Yes concerts equal 10. P.S. Would Rick do his magic on 10/14/74 during his Journey Six Wives masterpiece? 1974 was the year of Yes, the year they became a superstar live band with 2 sold out US tours and a larger US venues. Nice.
Yeah.
And then
You're still looking?
yeah, one more.
Okay.
Whitney Johnson says we had tickets for Yes at Madison Square Gardens November 20th, 1974. I was lucky enough to see Wakeman there about a month earlier on his Journey tour. We had read in Circus Magazine that the boys were coming out with a new compilation called Yesterdays. So imagine our surprise when we got to our seats and opened up the tour program and bam, the cover of the new album Relayer. Moments later, after the Firebird opening, Sound Chaser exploded from the stage. After Close to the Edge came To Be Over, then Gates of Delirium. John sang these are new songs, and I hope you like them. That Christmas, Relayer was the album that all my friends seemed to get from Santa. Reminds me of the holidays still. I was 13. Cool. So you must be about my age because that's how old I was.
Right.
That's awesome stuff.
Yeah, and here's a picture of the lineup, and just want to ask, what do you think is the legacy of this album, Dad?
I don't know how else to put it, Steve, other than all the many ways it was put with these comments, the things that it evoked and emoted in people and where it seems to sit for most people in the Yes chronology of music and their canon. I don't know how to say it any differently or better, other than what I said near the beginning of the show, that I don't know if any other band with so many other lineup changes, with so many years of music, where this one album of the only lineup is like one of the very tops for people. I think that's amazing.
Yeah, and this is the only Yes studio album with Patrick Moraz, so that's also part of the legacy.
Right?
I see Visualize Prague says he met Patrick Moraz once after Moody Blues show in '88. Warm and friendly and very funny guy who took the time to just hang out with a couple of fans and chat after the show. So there's that. And yeah, like for lots of people, this was like the peak of Yes for them.
Yeah.
Maybe their last favorite one in some instances, even if they still enjoy the stuff afterward.
Yeah, you're right.
So
Yeah.
yeah, definitely still long lasting music that'll keep getting remembered. And yeah, I'm glad we were able to talk about this. And also
One more anecdote, if I may.
Yeah, okay.
One other thing to put things in perspective. If I have my math right, I think Alan, they were so young. Alan was only like, I think 25 or 26.
Yeah, 25, I believe.
Yeah, so the others weren't much older. I mean, think about that for a minute, folks.
Yeah,
Folks who are
John-
my age, like in your 60s and upward, what were you doing at 25? I mean, I was gigging and stuff, but I wasn't putting out anything like that that'll leave a mark anywhere.
Right. And yeah, John was 30 and he was the oldest, and yeah, interesting.
And the only album with a Swiss member, and the first album with a non-British member.
Right, yeah.
So there's that as well.
Yeah. And yeah, so great stuff. And also want to say happy belated birthday to Johnny Bruns. I saw a post from Total Mass Retain, and hope that you're doing well. And today is also Miguel Falcao's birthday, also known as Miguel Bass. I forgot to mention the other day, he was also in Rael's prog rock documentaries YouTube channel, his Fragile documentary, so you can see him in that. And who knows, maybe people rewatch Rael's Relayer documentary from a year ago. Lots of neat stuff that
I'd love to see that.
Yeah, lots of neat stuff to cover in so little time,
And watch for notifications on my tribute to this album. I will play it in its entirety on the harmonica. No, on drums. On a new setup, in fact, too. Yeah. In fact,
Right.
hold on. Wait, real quick. Dun, 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 dun. Hold on one sec. It's coming, and it's right. It's
You're showing
right.
a picture of your drums or something?
Yeah, new setup. Here we go. There's some new. There. Can you take the other picture down?
Oh, right, yeah. Stop sharing. Okay.
So there you go. There's some new stuff mixed in. You can't even see everything, but yeah, it's going to be literally epic.
Nice.
I had another one from the front, but yeah, you'll all see. I'll do a promo soon. And maybe I'll just play this much of the song. Bam, ba, bam, 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 and that's it. Looking forward to it. Thanks, everybody, for following what we do on Yesshift and Drum Talk TV. You can write us if you have suggestions, questions, criticisms, donations, accusations at Stephen Schinder at, no, just kidding, at Yesshift Podcast at gmail.com. And Steve, where can they follow everything?
Yeah, we're at Yesshift on Facebook, YouTube, and could go to anchor.fm/Yesshift. It's easier to say than the longer URL. And if you search Yesshift in a podcast app, you'll probably find us. If you can't find us, you'll Google us, you'll probably find us. And
And we simulcast everything on Drum Talk TV's channels as well.
Yeah, for sure. So thanks for tuning in, everyone. I know there were so many comments that we didn't get to, but that's the power of this album, then the power of Yes and music. So a really great reminder of all of that, and happy holidays for anyone celebrating next week. And we'll be back probably like after this next week. I know we were thinking of reviewing that Dave Kersner's Lamb tribute album. So maybe that'll be after our little break.
Yeah.
So,
and I'm doing a tribute to that, folks, too.
Yeah. And we'll have to talk about whether we can pick a date to do a year in review thing for Yesshift, looking back at this year in Yes type thing. Yes and its members. Yeah.
Cool.
So, yeah. Thanks, everyone. And we'll see you all soon.
Thank you.